7th, 2023 here in the Dallas, Texas area, and it is starting to get hot outside. Going to be temperatures in the 90s today, and then continuing to get hotter as the days go on. It's supposed to be in the hundreds like in about, I think, 10 days. And so I knew they were coming, and we've enjoyed the last, I guess, a little over 6 months since we've moved here to Texas at the perfect time. So I encourage anyone and everyone that if you're looking to move to Texas, do not move in the months of June, July, August, September, or October. Move at the end of October through the winter months, and so you'll save yourself some sweating. Breakthrough Tour continues this Saturday. We will be in Dallas, Texas at the Courtyard in Plano, and you can find that information on Eventbrite. You can find it on Restored to Freedom on Facebook, and we'll be there at 7 p.m. Central Time doing a breakthrough event, and then this Sunday doing a Sunday service, and that will be on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. Going to be talking about Malachi, who was one of the minor prophets. It's like the last book of the Old Testament, even though chronologically it was during Nehemiah and Ezra's time here on earth. So, and then June 25th is the next worldwide deliverance session. Again, on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok at 9 p.m. Eastern. Again, I've been doing those since March of 2017, so a long time, about a little over 6 years. And we've seen thousands of people that have gotten healed and delivered, or at least it was their starting point in getting healed and delivered. And then July the 2nd, we'll be in Round Rock, Texas at Faith Culture Church. Looking forward to that. That's a 9 a.m. Sunday morning and 11 a.m. They have 2 services, and going to be talking about soul wound healing in the morning services, and then the evening going to take people through some deliverance. And again, I've done, I don't know how many, probably I've done, I would guess, something like 400 events live over the last, 7 years, something like that. And I mean in person versus doing it on the internet. So, all right, topic of the day. I don't think I've talked about this, at least if I have, it's not been very frequently, and that is dating after a narcissistic Jezebel relationship. You know, so many people obviously want to be married and to, well, in fact, before I do that, I want to show this. I forgot about that. I ordered some new ministry cards with the Restored to Freedom logo on it. So I'll have them for this weekend and of course going forward. But they also suggested that I could get mugs, and so I got a mug with the Restored to Freedom logo on it. And so I might be looking into getting some shirts and mugs and maybe some merchandise that people can get, because I know a lot of people around the world that have been restored to freedom, been healed, been delivered, and it'd be nice to, I don't know, have some merchandise available. So, all right, all that being said, dating after a narcissistic Jezebel relationship. So there's so many people, and I wrote a blog on this, so it's on my website, it's on Facebook, it's on YouTube, and I'm just gonna read through this, and then I'm gonna dive into it here and there. So many people have been hurt and wounded in their lives and have not been able to forgive those who hurt them. This allows the spirit of Jezebel to affect their souls, so their mind, their will, their emotions, causing them to become very controlling in their relationships. Their behavior then will self-sabotage their own relationship, yet their demons will tell them that they are a victim instead of the cause of the broken relationship. You know, they will target people who are more empathic, which have the Ahab spirit, that are more easy to control. So what if you've been hurt in a relationship with a person who has operated in that spirit of Jezebel? That would be deemed or called a narcissist. And then you're looking for a healthy relationship. So that describes a lot. I would say, in my opinion, that about half the world will default more to the controlling Jezebelic spirit, and the other half defaults more to the Ahab. Again, women and men can both be Jezebels or Ahabs. And it really goes back to how much hurt and wounding that they received when they were growing up. And we all get hurt and wounded. I've taken, again, thousands of people through personal sessions. And if you have been hurt from a controlling father or mother, or sexually violated, shown pornography, molested, raped, all the above, then those will allow demonic spirits to attach to our soul. And then you'll hear a lot of negative thoughts, a lot of thoughts portraying themselves to be your friend. And then you end up making decisions, oftentimes selfishly, that end up hurting your relationships. And if you have received that spirit called Jezebel, then you're going to be very controlling, very manipulative, very jealous, sexually impure. You're going to look for a relationship where you can have your own desires, your own selfish desires met by them. And you're largely looking to attach to someone that's going to be more gentle in their spirit, more giving in their spirit. So you oftentimes see the givers marrying the takers. And the takers are going to be those who have the Jezebel spirit. They're going to be more selfish, going to demand their own way. Oftentimes they'll trigger, they'll get mad, they'll say things that are mean, that are harsh. Again, I've had thousands of these people that I've helped get delivered, and I've had those who have been wounded by those types of people. So typically it sets them up to where they end up getting into a relationship with someone that they can control, that they can manipulate, that they can raise their voice and cause that person out of fear to submit to them. But then eventually, over time, oftentimes it's, I've seen this probably as a ballpark, is, depends on how empathic that person is, but oftentimes they get to about the 18, 19, 20 year mark of the marriage. And at that point, they're like, I'm not going to tolerate this anymore. This is not healthy. And oftentimes they're getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And I've seen some people that have died in staying in these toxic relationships with people who largely have demonic spirits, and they're mean. And they can go to church, they can even pray in tongues, and yet they can be horrible behind closed doors. And then those demonic spirits will try to attack their spouse and then try to attack the children and then pass it down to the next generation. So that's why it's so important and imperative for us to forgive those who have hurt us. And that's when I take people through soul wound healing sessions, is largely that is the goal. So if you have been in a relationship, say that you've been in a dating relationship with someone and or marriage to someone, and they hurt you and they wounded. Again, people that have those demonic spirits, their goal is to really hurt you as much as they can, to take advantage of you, and try to see how much they can take from you. And you can be loving them like Christ, and yet they will hurt you, they will be mean to you. Their goal is to try to cause you to feel hopeless, depressed, even suicidal. And that's all it takes, is a person in a relationship that treats you horribly, and you're loving them, the way that they should properly. But a person that operates in Jezebel and the narcissistic spectrum, nothing you can do to satisfy them. If you do everything they say today, then they'll change it tomorrow and you'll have to do everything again. So there's no satisfying them. There's oftentimes a very strong lustful spirit on them as well. And all they want is their own selfish sexual needs gratified. They could care less about you. So if you've gone through that relationship, sometimes you've gone through a dating relationship and it might be broken in a year, might be in a couple of years. Again, if you've been married to somebody and maybe you've gone 18, 19, 20 years, if you've gone through that far, you're going to have a lot of damage to you, because you're going to have a lot of memories. And a lot of the demonic spirits will remind you of the things they said and did. So the goal of them is to get you to hate them, get you not to forgive them. So the first thing that you must do, if you've been in a relationship like that, is you need to get your wounds healed. You need to truly forgive people for hurting you. And how do you do that? This is how I do it. I just have people, close your eyes, and I ask the Lord to come to speak to you about them from His perspective. And then the Lord will show you that they were hurt and they were wounded, oftentimes by their own mom, by their own dad, through sexual violations, and they never could forgive them. So therefore, that's how those demonic spirits attach to their soul, their mind, their thoughts, their will, their emotions. And, uh, and if they've never been able to forgive, that gives you a little bit of compassion for the person that has abused you. And then that is what the Lord did. Of course, He said, um, I forgive those who have, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do, as He was dying on the cross. So when we forgive, we need to mean it from our hearts. If we say it from our heads, we don't mean it from our hearts, then those demonic spirits have legal rights to torment us. So it's important to be able to forgive. Well, how do you forgive when someone's been horrible to you? And maybe you've been really loving to them and they've taken advantage of you. Oftentimes, people that operate in Jezebel will take advantage of you financially, and they will take all your money, as much as they can, until you have nothing left. And they could care less. They'll use you and abuse you. So what I do is, after you've seen the person from the Lord's perspective, that He will tell you that they were hurt, they were wounded, so that you can have at least a little bit of compassion for them, when they were growing up, and that's what made them horrible and mean today. Then what you do is say, I choose to forgive them, and then for causing me to feel, and then you explain to the Lord how you felt. And most people are like, I felt used, I felt abused, I felt violated, I felt controlled, I felt manipulated. All these emotions, because that's a part of your soul, your mind, your will, your emotions. And that's where those demonic spirits attach. And so when you're able to say, I'm going to give all of those emotions, all those negative emotions to the Lord, and now I ask you to heal me. And when you do that, then you can take authority and command any demonic spirits that attach to your soul to be gone to the pit. Then what will happen is you'll normally feel a lot lighter. You'll be like, oh my gosh, I don't have all the anger. I don't have all the bitterness. I don't have all the sadness, all the depression. It's like gone. And it can be that quick. Now, the enemy will try to remind you of all the things they did. And you may have been remembering all the things they did, like day after day, month after month. There's some people that never recover. They're just so like, oh my gosh, I love them like they deserved, and they treated me like I was scum, and I don't get it. I don't understand. It's like, well, it's demonic. And if you can understand the demonic world, and that they're real, and they attach to people that call themselves Christians, that attend church, that can pray in tongues. So then anyway, that's how I would take people through getting the wounds healed. And then you should notice that you feel lighter, you feel less hurt. And sometimes it takes a person, maybe a year to get over that. I know some people have gone to like therapy for years, being married to people that are narcissistic. But the therapist, if they don't understand, soul wound healing, inner healing, and deliverance, then if you still have bitterness and anger, and you're not able to see the person from the Lord's eyes, you can't choose to forgive, then those demons will still torment you and cause you to be struggling. And then if you get back into a relationship and you still have this anger and unforgiveness, you will typically draw back to another person that's going to hurt you again. Most people that draw to the spirit of Jezebel have the spirit of Ahab within them. And Ahabs feel comfortable in marrying a strong-willed person that wants to control them. They feel comfortable. It's just like King Ahab in the Bible, 1 Kings and 2 Kings. He married Jezebel. Why? Partly because it was a political marriage, and she had money coming from being a daughter of a king. And so, but she worshiped Baal, she worshiped ungodly idols, and then he compromised, and he tolerated all that. Shouldn't have. And so people that struggle with the Ahab spirit are more gentle. Oftentimes they're more empathic, more caring, and so people that have Jezebel will draw to them. You'll see that in about 85% of relationships. And when you draw, if you still have that spirit of Ahab, then you will continue to draw to a very strong, controlling person. There are benefits that you get from having that, because oftentimes you're not going to yell or raise your voice and get mad at somebody if they don't do what you want. And then you can use your Jezebel spouse or relationship to get what you want. Similar to Ahab, he wanted Naboth's vineyard. It was like next to the palace that he had, and Naboth said, "No, not going to sell it to you. Not going to trade, for it." And then he pouted. Ahab pouted about it and wouldn't eat. And then Jezebel said, "What's so wrong? What's the matter, honey?" He's like, "Well, I can't get Naboth's vineyard. He won't sell it to me." And she's like, "Seriously? I'll do that for you." And he's like, "You will? Oh, you're the best, Jezzy." Mwah. And what did Jezzy do? Jezzy came up with a plan, like they always do. Came up with a plan, accused the victim, Naboth. Well, they actually invited him to come to a banquet before people. Then they had two scoundrels, which are like the flying monkeys, the liars, that accused him. You came against God. You blasphemed God, and you came against the king, which were lies. It's a false narrative. It's how Jezebel works. And then they took him outside and stoned him and killed him. So Ahab got what he wanted. So if you're operating in a spirit more of Ahab than Jezebel, then you need to get your wounds healed as well. You need to go through a soul wound healing session, deliverance session, so that you don't get drawn back into a controlling person's life again. Otherwise, you will. That's why there's a lot of people that just go repeat, repeat, repeat. And they're like, oh my gosh. Especially understand this is people that operate in Jezebel will treat you nice as you're dating. They know that if they're gonna control you and be mean to you, you're gonna say, okay, one date, I'm done, I'm out of here. So they'll be as nice as they can. Oftentimes they're biting their tongue because they're like, I just can't be nice to this person. Oh my gosh, it's really killing me trying to be nice. So they'll oftentimes say, let's get married quickly. Let's get married in a month. 2 months, 3 months, and they want to do it fast because they're like, I can't be nice forever. And once they marry you, they're like, oh, now I've got you. And then the mask comes off and you see a different personality, an alternate personality where they're mean and they're controlling and they're jealous and they're evil and they're demonic. And then you're like, what did I do? And the reason why that happens is, and oftentimes it happens within the first couple of weeks. I know, I have experience. The Lord allowed me to go through some things where I could experience it myself. Then at that point, you're like, oh my gosh, what did I do? Why is the person not the same person that, well, it's because dating, when you're dating a person, believing that they might be the one, they're going to put their best foot forward until you say I do. And then the mask comes off. In fact, I remember my good friend, Christian psychologist Dominic Herp, says it's very common to see within the first couple weeks, sometimes on the honeymoon, that the person that you married changes and becomes very selfish and very controlling and very mean, very demonic. And it's like, oh, it's so true, so true. So, all right, number 2. So after you've come away from the relationship, after you've been healed, which again, for some people, it may be a year. Some people it may be 6 months or less. If they've been able to forgive the person, they may have been married for 5 or 6 years, and the person's been horrible to them, and then they've been able to forgive because they recognize spiritually that person's really wounded. But then they just can't tolerate it forever if the person's not willing to get healed and delivered. So anyway, number 2, after some time has passed, and you feel like your joy has been restored, and that you feel at peace, and you're able to sleep through the night, and you're not triggering from the former triggers, and you're feeling like you're ready to date, then realize that the chances of you finding a healthy, whole, healed, and delivered person is small. And that's the same when it comes to the church. Most people have been hurt, and they need healed of their soul wounds and delivered from their demonic strongholds. So you do not want to be deceived again by a new person who is, again, largely demonized. So many people believe that, okay, the person attends church. They're a Christian because they attend church. Yes, I can marry them because they're going to be just like Jesus. It's like, wrong. No, that's not the case whatsoever. In fact, many people in church, again, most all people have not been healed and delivered of their soul wounds. So they still have demonic spirits. And it doesn't matter if they call themselves a Christian, if they go to church and they're the worship leader, if they're a pastor, assistant pastor, pastor's ex-spouse, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter even if they pray in tongues. I learned that too. I thought for sure the litmus test is, my gosh, if you pray in tongues, you can't have demons. You can't have both. Until I learned that, yeah, you can, because I saw a person that I was married to that did that. She triggered all the time. It was horrible. And there was very little peace. She was anxious all the time and very prideful and would trigger many times a day for 6 years. And it was horrible. And I was like, oh my gosh, Lord, this is crazy. And she went through 4 marriages and 4 divorces. And they were very short ones. She couldn't be married very long because she would trigger so much. And so anyway, I outlasted the previous 3, almost combined, lasted for 6 years. I took all the brunt of this horrendous behavior. I had compassion. You know, I was able to forgive and forgive. But when people aren't healed, aren't delivered, it doesn't matter if you pray in tongues or not. That is not the litmus test. That's why it's really hard to know. Because if you get married quickly, then they can be nice to you for oftentimes a few months. But if you get out to dating for, say, a year, then you're going to tend to be able to see, maybe 2 years even, you're going to be able to tend to see some of the red flags. Like they will want to control you. They will want their way to be done and not yours. And if they, you might notice, you know, how they kind of like grit their teeth if you do something that they don't want and don't like. So that's why the longer you can prolong the wedding day, the more likely the chances you'll see who they really are. And that's Jezebel's goal, and that's Satan's goal, frankly. Satan's goal is to marry you up with a person that says, I'm a Christian, or I can pray in tongues, there's some that have ministries that they marry them, and then they end up getting triggered within a week or a couple weeks after they get married. And so it's really hard if you get married quickly. If you get married longer and you date longer, put it that way, you have a better chance to see who they really are. You know, do they cuss? Does the man look at pornography? If you're with him and you're walking down the street, does he ogle all the different women? If you go to the gym, is he lusting after other women? You don't want someone like that, you know? And again, even if they're a pastor, 50% of pastors look at pornography. So just because they say that they're a Christian or they pray in tongues, they're going to do their best to act like they are in order to get you to sign the bottom line that, hey, I'm going to marry you. And then when you get married, it's like, oh my gosh, who did I marry? What happened? So I also recommend too, is that you pray and ask the Lord to show you. You know, some people, the Lord might even tell you, listen, ahead of time, you can't talk to this person. Nope, they're false, they're fake. You can't talk to that person. Nope, that person's wrong too. You may have to go through 90% no's from the Lord to get to the 10% that are a possibility. You may only have one person that the Lord will allow you to date. Because if you're going to be dating people that are fake, that are wolves in sheep's clothing, and it goes both ways, women and men, then why even date? Why even go out on one date if that person is like going to lust after you and they're not the true person? Oftentimes what you'll notice is the persons that are true are going to have a lot of humility and a lot of peace. And if you have a person that's really, type A type personality, they're very demanding, they're very prideful, oftentimes that's an indicator that they could have some demonic spirits there that you won't see until you say I do. And once you say I do, you'll say, I wish I didn't. So, let's see. So again, if they've not truly forgiven people who hurt them growing up, then demons have legal rights to torment their minds and their souls. Now, they'll often be very prideful. And again, I've counseled thousands of people and couples, and some of the worst stories that I've ever heard of abuse have come from people who are Holy Spirit-filled Christian believers, but they were never healed and they were never delivered. Typically, they have a very strong level of pride. So, all right, number 3, ask the Lord to bring you a godly spouse, and then listen to the Holy Spirit to guide and direct you. Don't allow your emotions to drive you. Don't fall in love with their body, but spend time getting to know their heart and their soul. Never allow physical or sexual attraction to interfere with uncovering who the person really is in their soul. So when you find someone, again, of course, I understand you want to be attracted to the person, but you have to say this to yourself. You have to say, okay, I don't care how attractive that the person that I am to them. What matters is who they are inside, their soul. Because if that soul's not been healed and delivered, they're going to trigger on you. They're going to be mean to you, control you. If they still have demonic spirits, again, you won't see that. You may not see it until you say, I do. And then at that point, it's like, oh my gosh, it's too late. That's why it's important to have the Lord, to speak to the Lord. And then when you're talking to the person, you can almost make it analogous to like a job interview. Write some questions down. And this is what I put in here. Ask them about their life, their wounds. So how'd your father treat you? How'd your mother treat you? Have you, both ways you can ask it. Have you looked at pornography? When did you look at it? Or when did you look at it last? Of course, they probably lie about that, but at least their demons, if they have them, are going to start to be uncomfortable with what you're asking. But it's like, it's this serious stuff. You do not want to be married to a person that's going to try to destroy you. And there's so many out there, marriage-wise, that have been hurt deeply by people like that. And then what's really important is ask them some deeper questions after you've asked them about how what their wounds are, where did they get hurt at, how their father treat their mother treat them, any sexual violations, any exposure to porn. Then ask them, so how did you get healed of those wounds? How did you get delivered of your demons? And at that point, if the person's like, what? And they start to fudge, then you know that probably they've not ever gone through any type of inner healing, soul wound healing, and deliverance. And that is critical. I mean, if I were a pastor and I was marrying people, I would make sure I would not marry anyone unless I've taken them through some inner healing and deliverance sessions. And it would be multiple. You can, because all these marriage counseling suggestions, all fine and dandy, but it doesn't matter if the person's not healed and delivered, because they are going to turn on you. And then all of a sudden you're married to the enemy. You're sleeping with the enemy, literally. And then they want to attack you, and they want to hurt you, and they want to steal, kill, and destroy you, and or they want to marry you to procreate, have a child, and then treat the child horribly, and then hurt that child over and over again, and pass it down to the next generation. So then you're devastated, and then they'll oftentimes try and turn your child away from you, and then you end up getting hurt by not having a child anymore. So it's extremely critical. There's many marriages, I'll say this, that were not ordained by God, period. It was because you fell in love with someone physically, might have had premarital sex, and then you're like, well, I better go ahead and get married. And when you do, then the gloves come off, and that person who said they were a Christian, and they may go to church, but they may turn the entire church body against you by lying about you and saying some horrible things that are lies to make them look good, make them look like a victim of you. And then it's like, oh my gosh, now your entire reputation is sullied. So let me go on. So again, ask them how they got healed and delivered. And if they just said, oh, I just forgave and I got over it, without any true deliverance, ask them who their demonic strongman was. Was it Jezebel? And see what they say. Again, you can get married to anybody you want, but that person can become your true enemy. Especially if you have an assignment from the Lord, they will try to stop you from that assignment. They will try to shut you down, lie about you, and all the above. All right. What else? So yeah, be wise for your sake that you both go to a healing and deliverance minister before getting married. The goal of a person who still struggles with a Jezebel spirit is to push you to marry fast. Once they marry you, then their mask will come off, as they believe they own you now. You are their property. They own you. And you better do what I want. Otherwise, I'm going to lie, going to treat you horribly until you want to die. And there's a lot of people that have been in marriages where they've started to feel like they wanted to die, just like Elijah when he had to battle Jezebel. He ran away. She accused, was going to come after him and kill him, and he wanted to die. So once they marry you, they take the mask off, and they believe that they own you, and they'll try to, they'll trigger on you, and then try to destroy you, your reputation, and if you have a ministry, they'll try to ruin it. Number 4, dating over time will show you if they trigger often, overreacting to like small things, and need significant soul wound healing and deliverance. The longer the dating process, the more time can reveal if the person has significant wounds that need healed, because they can act nice for a few weeks, for a few months, but over the time of a year or longer, you'll have a much better chance to see how they respond to various pressures and situations. If they are calm or they get angry and controlling easily. Oftentimes in the dating process, the husband should be opening the door for, well, the boyfriend, whatever, should be opening the door for the girlfriend. But oftentimes they get married and then they stop doing that. And I just can speak from experience. I'm continuing to do that. Why wouldn't I? I love my wife and I want to honor her, and she honors me. And so you do things because you want to and you love them. When you're healed and delivered, you're not healed and delivered, you're going to be selfish. You're going to be demanding. You want your own needs met. You could care less about your spouse. So, what else? So, couples should both go through effective soul wound healing and deliverance sessions before ever considering to marry. And that is so true. Now, can a person marry and get delivered after that? Yeah, but it's harder. And why? It's because they got you. And their demons want to control you and make your life miserable and do what they want, and oftentimes brainwash you, gaslight you, they call it. In fact, there's a movie called Gaslight. I think everyone should watch it. I just watched it a month ago. It's a black and white film. I believe it's Ingrid Bergman that's in it. And she gets married to this guy that acts like he's all that, and then he starts to try to make her feel like she's crazy. And you can look it up. I think it's like 1948 or something. I was thinking, how do they know about gaslighting? Of course, the movie has gas-lit lamps in it, and he keeps trying to mess with them and turn them up and turn them down and so forth. So it's a I don't know. It's a very intriguing movie to watch. It's kind of dark, as you would imagine a person that would operate in Jezebel would be a narcissist. But it's crazy because during the dating stages, everything's fun normally, everything's new, getting to know the person, everybody's on their best behavior. But then, as time goes forward, you'll see probably less and less. You'll see more things, more chances of where there can be conflict. And then how do you handle that? Do you walk through it? Do you talk through it? Treat each other lovingly or kind? Does the person push you to have sex before marriage? You can't do that. I mean, you can, but you're not going to be blessed by the Lord. That's a big indicator. If a man is pushing the woman or vice versa to have sex before marriage, that means they want their selfish needs to be met. They want to turn it into a sexual relationship before it's a godly relationship with the Lord, and that's a big telltale sign as well. So, you'll have consequences if you do that with the Lord. If you ever do get married, then the person's going to more likely take you for granted and be more selfish and not honor you as they should as a godly person. So anyway, I wrote a book called Freedom from Soul Wounds and Demons. It's a very good resource to take people through inner healing and demonic deliverance process. It's available on Amazon and paperback, Kindle, and Audible. And I also have taken thousands of people through effective soul wound healing and deliverance. And you can schedule a session with my assistant Tina at tinak@restoredtofreedom.com, or you can call 317-459-7091, and we will call you back and set up a personal session. Again, I tell people I cannot get anyone healed and delivered that does not want to. If a person wants to, then we can get them healed and delivered. But if they lie and don't really want to, they want to go through the process, make themselves look and appear good. Again, that's why getting those soul wounds healed oftentimes will remove the strength of those demonic spirits. So it's much more effective to make sure that they're able to forgive all those who've hurt them, repent for their own pride, repent for their own sins, and then I command the top demonic spirits to come forward before the courts of heaven, so they can't lie to the person, and they'll tell the person if they still have legal rights left to torment them or not. If they don't, I can command them to go. Every demonic spirit reports to them has to go. If they do have legal rights, I'll find out what the rights are, and they'll tell the person, well, it's because they still haven't forgiven Uncle Joe, or it's because they haven't repented for dabbling in the occult, or they haven't forgiven their sister. So that's why it's important to get those wounds completely healed. But then once they have no rights, you can command them to go. And we've seen very effective. Again, not 100% because we're dealing with people that have their free wills. And if they don't want to get delivered, they don't have to. So, alrighty. Well, I will let you go. See you on Facebook and YouTube. Saying goodbye to you.